Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back as always. Let me get right to it here. First of all, our Michigan business friend has another Substack up on their Substack page, chemtrails.substack.com. I recommend you bounce over there and check this one out. It's a very long post filled with pictures, filled with videos. You talk about an awesome compilation of all of the chemtrails and the chemtrail videos and everything that was taking place last Monday during the eclipse and before the eclipse. It is wild. Absolutely wild all across America, but more specifically in the so-called path of totality. It is bizarre. And again, certainly not an accident, without a doubt. But again, bounce over to chemtrails.substack.com and check that out if you're interested. It really is quite a wake-up call. And again, you talk about an article to send people to wake them up about chemtrails if they have no idea. That's an excellent article to do it, no doubt about it. Okay, let me see here. I'm going to start with this. I have some education things per usual. Just a couple of jab-related things, 3 things if I can get to them. And I'll basically just start by saying this, geopolitically anyway. Things are certainly ramping up overseas. I'm certainly not going to claim to be an expert on everything that's going on. If bad people want to kill each other, I say go for it. Less of them, more of us works for me. But either way, there are endless Q drops and Q deltas that point directly to this week and last week, and of course, saving Israel for last. And there are endless other posts about Israel in those Q drops. I would recommend, again, that people bounce over to Operation Q.pub and check out those drops. And in the upper right-hand corner, it'll say search drops in a search bar. You can type in whatever word you want, and the posts will pop up. You can even type in a date. You can type in APRL, which is, of course, April, and then you can pick a particular day and then hit return and watch the posts that come up and read them and ask yourself whether or not it makes sense with what's going on today. Again, those are referred to as deltas. They've been happening constantly for numerous years. Again, this is part of the issue that I have with the individuals who just put this aside and act like it's not that big of a deal. Again, we were educated on a great deal of things throughout, of course, from 2017 all the way up till now, specifically with these drops, and it wasn't an accident. It was designed to wake people up. It was not designed to make people lazy. It did the exact opposite of that. It was not designed to pacify people and keep them on the couch. It did the exact opposite of that. All of the social movements and all of the wake-up movements, and I mean, you can pick a platform. It almost doesn't matter. Almost all of it came from the education that many of these drops were providing people. And again, one of the specific deltas talks very specifically about the need for people to be awake. And imagine what we're going through right now and everything that's happening, in particular during this election year, and what would happen if people weren't awake. So again, I've been over it numerous times before, and I'm just going to reiterate this once again. There are positive psychological operations, and that was one of them. That was certainly one of them. And it's worked, which is good. That's a good thing. Again, if people got their hopes up for one thing or another, or they got, their egos inflated or their mind inflated with some particular outcome or some particular happening that they think is going to happen, I would simply say give it time. Continue to educate yourself and the people around you. Continue to prepare. Continue to live your life and do the things that you're always doing, as we always should. But it doesn't mean sit on your couch and do nothing. It doesn't mean blindly trust people. That's not what the Q drops mean. So again, when I hear people talk about it and they say, well, what plan? There is no plan. There most certainly is. It's undeniable. In fact, let me mention this. This is one of those things that throws a lot of people off with the Q drops, which is unfortunate. But again, we were told in the Q drops that there are multiple meanings in these drops. That yes, you can take some of these at face value based on the actual thing that's happening at the time. But there are also multiple meanings and multiple dates in advance of what they plan on doing regarding a number of different things. So first of all, there is a post that is 1146, and it's dated, and you always have to pay attention to the dates on or around a particular time. But again, it helps if it's more specific. Here we are on April 14th. This post, again, was April 14th of 2018. It says, expand your thinking. The actual date, quote unquote, versus actual, it says. The date versus actual. It says, Iran next, trust the plan. April showers, and then showers are in kill brackets. It says, do you believe in coincidences? And then it is referring to a particular post that was on either 4chan or 8chan, whatever it was, and underlined very specifically in this post, April 8th is another Q drop of 1077, and it says authorize B19-2. And then below it, it says Mackenzie, and this is an individual describing this apparently, perhaps someone in the military, but they said, quote, USAF B-1 Lancer bombers launched 19 missiles. And again, this is in relation to Syria based on this particular conversation. Again, just think of the other things that we're seeing on television. When you see these rockets being shot from one place to another, we're always told, well, the rockets came from this place and they're landing in this area. That's not necessarily true. I mean, let's face it, we aren't there, are we? I mean, we can't see where the rockets are coming from. We can't see where they're landing. It's basically a giant sandbox, and everybody's just going, well, they landed in Israel, or they came from Iran, or they came from this place or that place. There's no telling. All we know is the narrative that the media is pushing. All we know is that when you get on X or any other social media platform, all the politicians, in particular the ones on the so-called right, they're all saying America stands with Israel. Well, again, I mean, what are they going to say? They're receiving money from Israelis. The Jewish lobby owns these people. They're not going to say anything otherwise. Not to mention, and I guess, mention this also, is that if these individuals are aware of this operation, and let's face it, not all politicians are. I mean, I remember very distinctly, I used to have these cue cards that I would leave particular places to lead people to websites. It was basically a red pill. It wasn't just the cue boards. It was a number of different websites that were on there that I thought would wake people up and, of course, lead them lots of different places. I gave a bunch to my dad, and my dad was on his way to go see Congressman, what's his name, Warren Davidson. He's the congressman that represents us in our area. And he went to see him talk, and they did kind of a Q&A, and then you could walk up to Warren and talk with him and shake his hand or whatever else. My dad handed him a cue card, and he goes, take a look at this. He goes, you're going to want to read this. He says, are you aware of this? And Warren Davidson looked at him, perplexed apparently, and he said, no, I've never even heard of this. He goes, you want to look at this. This is important. That was years and years and years and years and years ago. Again, during the Q drops, when most of them were starting to come out. So Warren Davidson had no clue. So we can't assume that all these politicians know about this information dissemination that's been happening online, but they have seen it now. They do know that Americans are waking up because they, of course, as politicians, are getting more phone calls and emails than they've ever received in their entire life. And part of that wake-up process for us, of course, which is really disappointing, is that we have figured out that we are way smarter than these people who have run for office and are in office, that the people in office are just flat out stupid. And that if you go to that position or any elected official, or certainly you attempt to hold, I should say, any elected position, you're going to find out that not only are you smarter than the people around you, but that the people around you don't want you around. Because again, if you don't play their game, they do whatever they have to do to get rid of you. And I mean whatever they have to do. So again, let me give you one more example. Given the fact that April 15th is Monday of this week, if you go over again to operationq.pub and you type in April 15th or APR space 15, start reading these posts. It's amazing. Let me read one of them for you right here. This is post 3966, April 15th of 2020. Q was responding to an anonymous post, and the anonymous person said, quote, You have to sense the tension building, Q. It's becoming a tinderbox. And then they responded, Q did, and said, quote, imagine if we weren't here. While difficult, it is important to understand this must be done by the book. Average people must be able to digest and accept factually events. FISA lead-in, Stage 1, Act 1. Bad actors had to be removed. Good actors had to be installed. Sleepers had to be uncovered. We are ready. Think bar public. And then Q. Again, there's far more there than what any of us can comprehend. I'm not going to admit that I know what that entire post means, but I do understand the section where it says, imagine if we weren't here. While difficult, it's important to understand that this has to be done by the book. Again, the post that's coming up more and more, of course, has to do with saving Israel for last and a single reason why they were never mentioned in any previous post. It's not that Israel wasn't mentioned in other posts. They most certainly were. In particular, numerous news articles about what Israel was up to and pointing to the fact that they're not great. I mean, yes, there are some good people there, I'm certain, but at the exact same time, their entire government is beyond tyrannical. I mean, they're genocidal, for God's sakes. But again, they're not the only ones, but they are the only ones, of course, poking the bear. And the people who they work with and the people that they receive money from and the money exchanging back and forth and so on and so on. But the entire Israel storyline in America right now is crumbling. And that's exactly what these posts were leading us up to. That was certainly part of this giant plan, which again is great, and I'm all for it. So again, just as a reminder, when something big hits the news, I always recommend going over to the Q boards and typing in the current date or at least the week around when events like this occur. Because again, it really is interesting. It's not that we're necessarily watching a show and that everything that we're watching is fake. I'm certain that a great deal of what we're watching is not real, or at the very least not real in the sense as to why we're being told what we're being told. And that even, of course, some of the things that we're being shown aren't necessarily legit. I mean, we have to assume that that's the case. It's the media, for God's sakes. I mean, they're not going to be telling us the truth all the time. We know that. At least most of us do. But at the exact same time, there is a great deal of things that are happening that are very, very good. And again, one of those is massive communication. And communication, of course, on our security is one of the conversations and forms of communication that's happening with regularity. Again, let me give you an example. There's a lot of chatter this week, and again, I'm not saying this to panic anybody, but there's a lot of chatter this week about numerous attacks taking place in the United States, and that sleeper cells in the United States are coordinating to attack particular locations either throughout this coming week or certainly the weeks in advance. There was that story that I read last week, I think it was last Friday's episode, about Airbnb and how, again, they fully plan on changing their terms of service regarding what happens when you pay for a particular location and whether or not you're allowed to leave said location before you're supposed to leave, or are you allowed to go home, and that policy takes place on June 6th, if memory serves. Again, it begs the question, what do these companies know that we don't about our ability to move from point A to point B? Because again, it's right before that where you have, of course, the so-called pandemic treaty from the World Health Organization that's going to be voted on. And we know that they want to limit our movements, and they certainly want to lie to us and scare us about some disease which won't exist. And then again, manufacture maybe other events as well. But being prepared and being vigilant and looking at multiple angles is a good thing. And again, that's one of the things that those Q drops taught us to do. It didn't teach us to go crazy, and it certainly, like I said, didn't teach us to just sit on our ass and do nothing. It was quite the opposite. It woke people up. It threw cold water on people on purpose to say, snap out of it. Now start paying attention to the real world you live in. And here we are, and it's happening. So there you go. It's kind of my geopolitical rant for this particular episode, but there's a lot going on, and we can't believe every single thing that our TV tells us. Just because you see a rocket fly through the air from one sandbox to another doesn't mean that it's hitting any particular thing. And it certainly doesn't mean that it happened when they say it happened or that it's happening where they say it's happening. Again, I'm not denying that people are bombing each other and killing one another. But frankly, that's over there. And we are here in America. And again, if you're listening to this and you're America, you're in America, clearly. But there's also, of course, this false flag, and this is something to consider. We've known for a very long time that Israel wants that mosque completely destroyed. What is it? Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, I guess. I mean, we've known for a very long time that Israel wants that gone, that the Jews want that completely wiped out. So what better way to blow it up themselves than to use any rocket attack that the media is saying is actually happening and say, whoops, one of the rockets just made its way through and landed right in the middle of that mosque, and wouldn't you know it, now we have to bulldoze it, and now we get to put up whatever we want to put up. I mean, look, if they can coordinate with the United States government, the British government, and other foreign governments regarding 9/11, I think blowing up a mosque is rather simple in the grand scheme of things. They got people to believe that there were planes on 9/11. I was one of the people that first believed it also, and then, of course, learned otherwise. In fact, I should say this, it really is during times like this when it really is overwhelming when you stop and you think about the people who are dead asleep. And as we know, there are endless people who are absolutely dead asleep. I mean, they have no idea what's going on in the world, and unfortunately, many of them who actually think that they know what's going on in the world actually isn't. And they're advocating for things that are complete pretend. And they're playing along with policy and procedure and a number of other things that have absolutely nothing to do with the real world and anything that's really going on. If you stop and you think about those people, I'm telling you, you might bring yourself to tears. It really is overwhelming. In fact, now that I've just said that, let me move on to this education stuff. This is certainly part of that. I'll put it that way. And this right here again is a subject that I've specifically brought up before and even written about in some of my books. And again, it's remarkably overwhelming, the time wasting that takes place in American schools. And this, of course, is part of the purposeful distraction. You need brainwashed adults to instruct children to then brainwash the children into believing things that aren't real. And that are, of course, a waste of time. Because if you waste people's time, you're wasting their ability to learn. You're just stripping that away from them on a constant basis. As we know, this happens in American schools on a day in and day out basis. And we were all victims of this, in particular, again, if we attended public, private, or charter schools when we were growing up. Now, if you were homeschooled, I'm sure you learned more of the truth than perhaps those that were not homeschooled. Some homeschooling curriculum, of course, is not real, which is, again, why the unlearning and the deprogramming has to be a constant, lifelong activity. But this particular strategy is unfortunately something that is occurring more and more within board meetings themselves, and it has to do with administrators coming into board meetings who work as principals in the buildings in their district and then giving presentations about the things that they're doing in the buildings, as if to, again, justify their actions and their participation in particular things, and look what we're doing, and isn't this great, and XYZ. A part of this presentation that I'm going to play here for you, and you're going to hear this audio, this comes from a female elementary school principal. Now, I don't mean to paint with a wide brush, but if you can imagine a female elementary school principal in your mind, okay, you probably, in particular in this day and age, you probably come up with an accurate depiction of what that person would look like and sound like. In fact, you can probably hear this person and you will hear their voice, and you can imagine what they actually physically look like. I mean, this really is one of those odd things that happens when you obtain knowledge over the course of years, is you can sometimes hear a person and be like, oh, I bet they look like that. Or you can look at a person and be like, yeah, I bet they sound like this. It really is awful because, again, part of the dumbing down of America, which of course is a constant thing too, is that you have individuals who have to be dumb themselves and sound dumb in order to then push whatever message or policy or procedure or program that they are implementing within their school and within their district, and then ultimately on children, which is the ultimate form of brainwashing. Now, the policy that you're going to hear this individual talk about, again, this is a female school principal, who ironically enough happens to be, I believe, the wife of the police chief. So, yeah, I mean, that's overwhelming enough. Either way, with all of that aside and those odd connections aside, the particular presentation that this individual gives is about PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. I've been over this program before. I've been over all the studies about this, and certainly the examples that I've brought up in the past, specifically regarding my own whistleblowing experience. This particular thing was one of the main reasons why I was complaining in the workplace. Again, if you've listened to that episode of me laying out my whistleblowing experience, you know that there were numerous reasons, but this was certainly one of them. And this was a policy and a procedure that had actually started at the very local level, but was working its way from school to school to school, and then it was being written about at length, and then before you knew it, entire states and state boards of education and state superintendents were taking this up and then implementing it and running with it. And then, of course, it became this giant cash cow. And as you might expect, it also is designed to distract children, and it's designed to make them compliant and make them brainwashed. Now, inside of PBIS, there is something that's referred to as the PACS Good Behavior Game. And again, I've been over this on the show before, but just to quickly review before I play this audio. This particular quote-unquote good behavior game is not only designed to make children compliant all of the time, regardless of whatever is taking place, but it's designed to turn the children basically into Bolsheviks. And it's designed to get them to rat out one another when they're not doing something. So to consistently look around the room as a child and say, Billy's not doing this or Sally's not doing that, and then before you know it, not only is your name on the board and multiple checks next to your name like you're doing something wrong, but they actually will keep up in the classroom particular charts of everyone's names on giant poster boards, essentially. And then individuals will rise or fall depending on what they do or don't do in the classroom, and then everybody sees this. This is visual to everyone. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, wow, that seems really unfair and absolutely horrible, congratulations, you're a human being with a mind, a brain, and a heart. That's good, because all of this is awful. But again, what you need is you need brainwashed adults in order to carry out such a stupid ideology on children, to then brainwash those children into believing that this is how society works and that this is the best way to operate within school, is to be compliant all of the time for monetary or reward gain of some kind. Again, physical objects, or you get free time, or you get to go over here and play flip the cup, or you get to come over here and flip a water bottle, or you get to have a little extra time at recess, or an extra slice of pizza, or whatever the hell stupid reward they give these people. And then, of course, as they're doing that, they're making it sound like the children who aren't receiving it are missing out on something. Well, joke's on everybody. Everybody's missing out on something because everybody in the environment is being lied to and manipulated. So again, you need the brainwashed individuals who need to be adults working in these environments in order to go along with this. Now, I'm going to play a piece of this presentation. I want you to hear what she says, listen to the tone of her voice, and then what she does. And this right here, I'm telling you, I almost rubbed the skin off my face. I was rubbing my face so hard in disappointment and in anger when I heard this. I thought to myself, again, this is full-blown child abuse. What she does is toward the end of this presentation, which, again, you'll hear it, She has her cell phone on a tripod or in her hand or whatever it is, and she picks out these particular children, students, within this school, and she has their back up against a wall, and she shoves the camera in their face, and she asks them, what is a good PAX leader? PAX. What is a good PAX leader? What does a PAX leader do? What does a PAX leader mean? And then the children are just rehearsing these lines as if they've been given these lines in advance and then told to repeat these to the principal on camera, because again, we now have to use these brainwashed children as promotional devices to further push our brainwashing and make it look like we're actually doing something that's positive. None of this is positive. None of it. And again, if I was in that meeting after the presentation that was given here and during the public comments section, I would have laid into this school principal and that school board for having PBIS and this PAX good behavior game. I would have leaned into all of them, told them they're all child abusers, and it wouldn't have mattered. It would have gone in one ear and out the other. That's how far gone these people are. Again, studies have been written about PBIS being fraudulent, being a distraction, a time waster, that it's designed for compliance, and that's not always a good thing because it's communistic. It's designed to get everybody to do the exact same thing at the exact same time, no matter what, no matter their level of comfort. You're almost not even allowed to ask a particular question at certain points either, because then again, you'll look foolish, or you'll look like you're not compliant, or like you didn't get the directions the first time. So if you ask a question, then you'll be berated by your peers or the teacher themselves. Again, if this sounds like child abuse, it is. So I'm going to play the audio now. Give this a listen. Again, left-wing, female, school principal who can hardly speak English. She's a white woman, hardly speaks English fluently. It's awful. Give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
I'm excited to be able to share with you the wonderful things that are going on at Marshall. When I got hired, I had my first meeting with the staff this year, and I told them we had 4 things that we wanted to be brave. So we wanted to try new things, challenge ourselves, challenge the students. We wanted to grow students. We wanted to have fun. And I think as you see as I go through the presentation, we are accomplishing all of those things. We are, when they first, okay. I had asked the teachers to really, we've gone through COVID, we're getting back, we're finally bringing things back that we're able to do. We had quite a few challenges with different start times. So I really wanted our teachers to remember their love for teaching and why they were coming to school every day, and really try and focus on that this year. So I picked a couple of my favorites, and I just want to read this one. I am teaching because I love to learn. I love the opportunity to share the love of learning with students. Teaching's a profession that is always changing and that keeps it interesting. Watching young students grow and look back at progress they make is very rewarding. I appreciate sharing a small part of the pride they feel when they succeed at something they didn't even know they didn't know. As humans, we're always changing, and sometimes I feel like I don't know who I am or where I'm going, but I always feel at home when I'm working with a student. I feel like me. Teaching can also weigh on your heart in heavy ways as well, but I stay in the profession because during the times I've stepped away, I always missed it, and I missed the children. So we just are really trying to remember that and bring that back. We are for PBIS, which is Positive Behavior Supports and Services. We are a PAX Good Behavior school. So we are school-wide. It is an evidence-based preventative program. And what is really nice is that it gives the adults in the school setting strategies to help prevent behavioral health concerns and promote positive relationships. PAX strategies are preventative and appropriate for all students. And it's not just one more thing that teachers have to do. It naturally embeds into their actual day-to-day. Teachers at the beginning of the year work really hard to set that vision with their students in the classroom about what they want to see more of, hear more of, do more of, what they want to see less of, do more of. And the students really drive that and come up with that. Then they're able to have that same expectations for different parts of their day. They're able to come up with it, what it looks like for center time, what it looks like in the cafeteria, at recess. The nice thing about PACS is that it provides a common language across the building. So our students K through 5, our specials teachers, our recess monitors, the office staff, we're all using that language and those consistent expectations. And students are aware of what's expected of them as PACS leaders. We did a really nice PACS reboot in January when the kids came back to school so that we were able to go over those expectations. We had a nice little assembly and the students loved being a part of that. Teachers, right, they're called toodles. So when a student is caught doing a good thing, they write them a toodle, they bring it to the office staff reads it to them, high fives it, and then we hang it up in the hall. And then we pick one during the week or two, and that kid gets their toodle read over the announcements and gets to pick the song for the morning announcements. So the kids really like to, when I come in and be like, oh, I picked your toodle, like a lot of the kids already have their like song picked out and they are like ready to go, or they tell me their song before they're even picked because they just want to hear their song in the morning. Subs visiting our building have told us that they recognize the difference of being in other buildings and just really see that nice, calm PACS environment. So I just wanted you to hear real quick a couple words from our kids about it.
I am a PACS leader. I better my world. I better myself. I create more peace, productivity, health, and happiness. I am a PACS leader.
Can you tell me what a PACS leader is?
Like helping someone, or like being quiet, or doing something good. Not being good at all.
Okay. Who can be a PACS leader?
Everybody. A PACS leader is someone who listens to directions, sits crisscross applesauce, raises a hand, and always listens to the teacher.
Who can be a PACS leader?
A lot of people can be PACS leaders. Everyone can be a PACS leader. Some people just don't try. Right?
What is a PACS leader?
A person who does nice things, and a person who does nice things for others.
What's a PACS leader?
A good person. Well, like a kid that like follows directions and does good things. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
What's a PACS leader?
When you like don't interrupt someone when they're talking, and like you're not rude to people, and then you compliment them.
These are just some of the PACS visions that have been created with the kids at the varying grade levels.
I'm going to stop it there, and I'm going to mention a few things as one might expect. First of all, she starts to show pictures. Of course, she recorded those children over her cell phone and then airs it, of course, on YouTube, live, and in a board meeting. So it begs the question again, do these kids have permission to be on film or not? I have no idea. But she shows some of the inside classroom pictures of these things that they're putting on the walls inside of the classroom. And again, it says, there's one shot here that says, classroom family, I can do this. And it has pictures of particular things that they have children doing, like shushing one another and raising hands and, sitting in a chair and walking appropriately. I mean, honest to God, it's almost like these kids can't wipe themselves unless the classroom teacher says so. But then they also have these other behaviors that are listed essentially, and then children's names below them in certainly what looks to be some specified order of some kind. Again, they're pushing all of this. And you heard her at the very beginning. It's my job to make sure that we're having fun and that we're trying new things and that we're getting back from COVID. No, that's not your job. Your job is to hire competent people to make sure that children can read, write, do arithmetic, and comprehend. And you're supposed to raise the bar of intelligentsia, not lower it. You're supposed to raise it. You're supposed to hire people who are remarkably objective, not childish, even though, again, they are around children. The idea, again, is to not drop down to their level from an adult down to a child. It's the job of the adult, in particular in a school building, to raise the child up to be an adult. You're teaching adults. That's ultimately what you're doing. You're trying to teach them to be adults. This business of hand raising, sitting in a chair, be compliant all of the time, listen to what the teacher says all of the time, rat out one another when somebody's not doing something. I mean, some of this is remarkably nefarious, and again, it's a time waster, as you would expect. This did not exist when I was in elementary school. Again, we had spelling tests constantly in elementary school. I mean, it was harder back then than it is today. And even again, you go back 100 years, it was harder then than it was when I was in school. But again, what impact is this having on their academic performance? Well, as it turns out, it's this. They show their state report card on this particular screen and in this particular presentation. I'm going to read this, and here's what it says. Again, you may recall that the state report cards went from being numeric to being a star system now. It's stars. Again, the very measurement that they're using to measure quote-unquote school success or proficiency in subjects is now based on a star rating. It's not real analysis of anything that's quantitative. It's just stars. So they have 4 out of 5 stars in achievement. They have 5 out of 5 in progress and 5 out of 5 in gap closing. These are the 3 categories that are star rated. So as a result of all of that, they have a 4.5 out of 5 star overall rating. It says districts and schools receive an overall rating of 1 to 5 stars in half-star increments. The overall rating is comprised of 5 rated components. The college, career, workforce, and military readiness component is report only and does not contribute to the overall rating of the 2023 Ohio School Report cards. It says highest proficiency levels in 5-year history, higher than pre-COVID, all proficiency, all grades, all tests. And then it says achievement, 5th grade specifically. It says in math, the state average is 57% proficient. That's the average in the state of Ohio, allegedly, for 5th grade math. But this particular elementary school apparently has a 71% proficient rating. That's not good. I mean, that isn't good at all. The next one is English as a second language. The state average is 68% proficient. That's not good either, as a state average. But Marshall Elementary, this particular elementary school, is 82% proficient. Why is it that we are only 82% proficient in English and language arts in this elementary school? Again, you heard the sound and the voice and the mind of that elementary school teacher. That's usually indicative of the entire environment. The way that they speak, the way they conduct themselves, where their focus exists, this is a huge problem. And 82% proficient is not good either. It should be 100% across the board. Again, this is 5th grade. This is the last test that these children take on their way out the door, on their way to 6th grade. And here's the sad part. These percentages and these breakdowns of so-called proficiency are not unique to this elementary school. They carry on into the middle school and into the high school. They might increase slightly by, say, 5% in each category. And there's a science category here, by the way, which says that the state average in Ohio for the subject of science is 63% proficient in 5th grade, but this elementary school has a 71% proficiency rate. Still not good at all. You're basically hovering around average, give or take, a little above average. You're still in the 71% range. So you're talking C-, B-, C-. Congratulations. And then they pat themselves on the back, like they've done something great. Again, anytime you see an uptick in the percentage when they hit middle school or high school, that's a simple issue of demographics. That's a simple issue of the number of students that are in the building. If you have more people taking the test, it's mathematically a certainty, I should say, that you're going to have an increase in the percentage of proficiency. You just have more people taking the test, so of course that's going to be the case. But again, it doesn't matter because it's all hovering around the same percentile all of the time. It really doesn't change too much. Not to mention, again, cornering these kids and recording them and, what is a PAX leader and what does that mean? All of this is tied together. All of this is the reason that all of this is broken. In fact, I gave a presentation in Dayton, Ohio. And I don't know if it was my last presentation, but it was one of the last ones I gave, one of the last 3 or 4 presentations I gave. I gave a presentation in Dayton, Ohio, and this would have been way before 2020. And it was on this very specific issue. It was about PBIS and the PAX Good Behavior game and how it's fraudulent. And again, how it wastes time. It takes children away from being able to read and write. And unfortunately, it also is used as a disciplinary measurement to show individuals who are interested, I should say the so-called stakeholders, that when individuals engage in PBIS and schools adopt all of this indoctrination nonsense, that their discipline numbers drop. This is unprovable. This cannot be proven at all. It can't be measured. Not when you have such a fraudulent existence of administrators rewording discipline policies and deleting discipline referrals. You've heard me bring this up on the show before too, and they do it every stinking year. In fact, they'll drop these things in a newspaper in some instances, or they'll bring them up in a board meeting, and they typically happen at the end of the year, or they bury it right in the middle of the summer when they know no one is watching. It's when the school openly states that they, for example, had 24 reports of bullying, but then once the administrators reviewed all of them, they realized that there were actually no reports of bullying. And they'll say, we had 24 reports, but we had 0 actual instances of bullying and no discipline regarding bullying. Therefore, we don't have a bullying problem. And then everybody's just supposed to blindly believe that. It's gaslighting to the nth degree. Because again, where did the 24 reports come from in the first place? Was everybody just making it up? Were these individuals who were being harassed or being, again, sexually assaulted or whatever it may be, or being made fun of in one way or another, were they just imagining this? Or did you just not like the serious nature of it, so you reword it, you delete them, and then you shuffle it under the rug, and you rework the numbers in your board office to then present it to the public as if you don't have a problem? PBIS is part of that. PBIS is designed, so they think, to lower discipline numbers, but it doesn't. In fact, I would go so far as to say, with the brainwashing and the time wasting, it makes everything worse. I just read you the proficiency percentages. Those are in the dumpster. They're terrible. They're absolutely terrible. And again, just in conclusion regarding that particular school, although this next thing I have to bring up directly ties to it also, but you heard the voice of that school principal. When that's the individual who is in charge, and that's the individual that is responsible for engaging in interviews of potential employees, again, what kind of a person are they going to hire? Let's say, for example, hypothetical, completely pretend I'll never do it. Let's say, for example, I decided to round out my educational career and the things that I've done in the field of education by becoming an elementary school teacher. I started off as middle school. I've taught all 3 grades in middle school. I taught all 4 grades in high school. I taught at college, briefly. But what if I went back and became an elementary school teacher with my credentials, my resume, and the way that I speak English? Do you think they would hire me? Of course not. They wouldn't hire someone like me under any circumstance whatsoever. In fact, it wouldn't matter how many certifications or licensure I had. It wouldn't matter how competent I sounded. If I didn't agree with particular things that they were doing, then they would strike it up to, well, we're looking for someone who buys in to what it is that we're doing here, and somebody who can be a team player, and somebody who can do this and do that, and really enjoys what we're doing here. Those are the kinds of people they hire, because that's all they're looking for. See, they have to dumb things down for themselves also, because if they raise the bar of objectivity and factually accurate information and literacy, then the entire game is over. The charade is well known to everybody then. The veil is lifted. The cat's out of the bag. Everybody can see how stupid they are then. So in order to keep that from people, so they think, joke's on them, we know how dumb they are. They do the exact opposite. They dumb everybody down, and then it's the compliant that only remain. It's only the compliant that remain. Again, Cicely Hellickson's been on the show, contributes to the show. She was a former elementary school teacher. Does she sound like somebody who would survive in that environment today? Of course not. Of course not. And she knows that. She's smarter than those people. That's why she left. She was looking around and going, holy shit, look at these dumbasses. Look at what they're all doing. I got to get out of here. And she did. It begs the question, what's wrong with what's going on in the minds of the people who are still there? There's clearly a screw loose. There's something not right. And it really is IQ. Again, I've mentioned this before, this particular book. It is a must read. Everybody should read Thomas Sowell's Inside American Education. That book will blow you away. And I have to tell you, there's a very good reason why that book isn't introduced, let alone any of his books aren't introduced into teacher education programs at the university level. If anybody read that book, and I wish I had, when I was training to be a school teacher, I probably would have changed majors. It's that impactful of a book. I read the book when I was done. I read the book after my whistleblowing experience and after I quit. And I thought to myself, holy shit, what did I just do for the last 9 years of my life? It's amazing. And it's depressing. It really is. But back in the early 90s, he was laying it out and he was saying, look, this is not a winning business model because it requires, again, not only a dumbing down of children, but that dumbing down of children has to come from the dumbing down and the dumb adults that exist within these environments. Just doing the general same things over and over and over again, and not even stopping to think maybe the thing that they're doing isn't factually accurate. Again, the amount of time that gets wasted in American schools is beyond me. It's overwhelming. So I'm going to switch subjects here and move on, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention because, again, I heard that audio and I thought to myself, there's no saving this. You can't save any of this. Which leads me now to this. This is kind of connected. No doubt about it, as a matter of fact. I was asked by Sage Open, and Sage Publications is one of the larger academic journals that exist, certainly regarding a variety of subjects, but teacher education and higher education and a number of other subjects are included, psychology, things of that nature. Anyway, none of that matters because, again, a lot of the stuff that they publish is absolute trash. But I was asked to review another manuscript, and I said that I would after reading the abstract and reading the title because cutting this open with a knife is going to be the easiest thing that I've ever done. And I wanted to read it for you here. I'm not going to read the whole article because it's almost 30 pages long, but I want you to hear the title, the abstract, and then I'm going to read the conclusion. And this is interesting. Now, it's based on a lie, based on the words that they use like COVID-19 and pandemic. We know that those aren't real. They didn't exist. But the title of this manuscript is, quote, Dream or Dreamless Job. The relationship between harmonious and obsessive passion for work, private life, and insomnia. in Academics During COVID-19 Pandemic. It's a good title because it really does describe, again, the gist of the study. So here's their plain language summary, which again is basically their abstract, but just put a little more plainly. It says the following, quote, "In recent years, academic jobs have changed. They used to focus mainly on teaching and research, but now academics also have a lot of administrative tasks. This shift has affected the well-being of academics, especially with new technologies and the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic." So they're running on the basis of this being a real thing. It was not. That's where all of this goes haywire. It says passion for work plays a big role in how motivated and balanced academics feel, especially since academia can be demanding. A study looked at 1,119 Italian academics from 11 universities during the pandemic, based out of Italy. They studied two work types of work passion, harmonious and obsessive, and how they relate to detaching from work-life balance issues, and trouble sleeping. They found that having a harmonious passion for work and being able to detach from work were linked to less conflict between work and family life. On the other hand, being obsessively passionate about work was associated with more conflict between work and family, as well as more trouble sleeping. Now, this shouldn't shock anybody. I mean, that's part of what's ridiculous about this study. And a lot of these is it's like, hello, Captain Obvious, we know this. Yes, you work harder. Yes, that's going to have a strain on family life, no doubt about it. And yes, that's going to impact sleep. No kidding. Those are three dots that anybody can easily connect. The problem is who manipulated this social situation called COVID-19 pandemic? And how many people believed it? That's the study that has to be done. In particular in academia, in my humble opinion. It wraps up here, though. Sorry for that digression. It says women academics tended to experience more work-family conflict and trouble sleeping. The study suggests that a healthy balance between work passion and other life aspects as a positive is very important for well-being. It also highlights the importance of addressing obsessive work behaviors within academia through governmental and organizational support. Unquote. Again, there's two major things in that last paragraph that stick out to me. Number one, women in academia, and I don't mean any offense, because there are very good women in academia, but some of them are batshit crazy. And you know the ones I'm talking about. Even the women listening to this who are wide-awake professors, you know who I'm talking about. Not talking about you. I'm talking about your colleagues who are nuts, and you know that. The other thing that sticks out is, from a female standpoint, is this right here shows people, I hope, that these environments may not be for females. I'm not saying that they can't work. I'm not saying that they can't earn a living. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it shows a purposeful cultural shift from getting women out of the home and to get them from not being wives and not wanting to be wives and not wanting to be mothers, which was the thing that, of course, they were built to do, and throw them into a working environment where competition and status and salary and look at me, and look what I'm studying and look what I'm doing and I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread and all this other just societal pressure nonsense that can come with, frankly, any working environment, that this is pulling them away from their natural creation. Yes, that's going to have a negative impact on everything around them. Frankly, it's not too much different from most men. Although, again, most men were bred to provide and protect. That's what we were built to do. That's the whole point. But again, it says the importance, and this is again the kicker at the end, is they basically say, in order to fix all of this and all these problems regarding work satisfaction and stress and blah, 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 is we need more government and organizational support. No. Government and organizational support, quote unquote, is what got you here in the first place. That's the problem. So, again, I've accepted to read this as a manuscript and then provide my 2 cents. I don't think by any stretch, and I've read a great deal of it thus far. I do want to skip, however, to the conclusion and read this for you very quickly. But I don't think I'm going to approve this because I just can't. It's based on a lie. It's based on something that isn't real. Now, of course, what is real is the stress that came with that time period and what was going on during that time. But what they don't know as an organization and as a government, quote unquote, institution is that they were all bullying each other and they were all pressuring one another and they were all believing it. And that's why they were stressful environments. That's why you're sick. That's why you're dead. That's why you have, skin lesions and you're constantly sick and you don't know why and whatever else. That's why you have this sexually transmitted disease called COVID-19, quote unquote, but it's really a nanotech bioweapon. That's why. It's because you believed government. You turned on the idiot box when you went home and you believed it. The places that didn't believe it and knew that it was fake, it was far easier on us. And for us people in the crowds and the groups that we hung around, it's far easier on us. The hard part, of course, is we had to watch all you crazy people. And we had to watch all of you tear down society by going along with a lie that you couldn't pick up on the fact that it was a lie. So here's the conclusion of the study. It says the following, quote, "The aim of the study was to investigate the relationship between HPOP, WFC, PD, and insomnia in a large sample of Italian academics during the second lockdown, building on previous research highlighting the detrimental effects of WFC and sleep disturbances on individual well-being and work quality. Understanding these dimensions, which represents both personal and organizational costs, is crucial for assessing well-being in the academic context and implementing targeted interventions such as technology disconnection or sleep hygiene courses and programs." Sleep hygiene courses, and that's referenced from 3 studies, 2015, 2018, and 2019. It says, given academics' current and extensive reflections on working conditions resulting from the economic crisis, austerity reforms and policies, the race for funds and publications, a general undermining of academic work, quote unquote, and a constant dealing with identity issues, and there are multiple references for that, all the way from 2010 to 2022, this study sought to explore the importance of work passion as a central component of work identity. We focused on the effects of harmonious and obsessive passion on WFC without explicitly examining the factors that contribute to the development of each type. However, based on the dualistic model for passion, we can infer that contextual factors which limit autonomy and impose external, bureaucratized goals that are often incongruent with personal values and aspirations can hinder the full behavioral integration of work activities and promote the development of the obsessive component of passion. Honest to God. There's another aspect of this too, I think, and they sort of alluded to it back when they were talking about the general undermining of academic work. The whole COVID lie ushered in a complete new level of laziness and excuse making that we've never seen before. Of course, artificial intelligence doesn't help either, but the AI stuff came after, although kind of during, the entire COVID lie. Not during 2020 or even 2021, but the AI stuff showed up around 2022. Certainly, I think the latter half of 2021, but either way, the excuses that we hear today now, they say, well, because of COVID. Well, because of the pandemic. Now, again, ask yourself, what happened, do you think, to the quality of so-called research papers or investigation or 1,000 other things in the field of academia, in higher ed during this time? Did it get better or did it get worse? Did it become more objective and more pinpoint accurate as to what was really going on in the world, or did they go in the opposite direction? I think we know the answer to that question. What's interesting, of course, is that those of us who aren't involved in those areas, certainly not in education anymore, we can see the entire playing field for what's going on, and the publications out here where we live and where we operate, the intelligentsia has increased without a doubt. That's why you have Substack the way that Substack exists. There's more free thought and objective analysis on Substack than most other places. That's why you have Gab, and there's more education taking place on Gab these days. That's why you have BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, so on and so forth, and all these other platforms where people can actually learn. But when you're in these environments, hell, there's no learning taking place. There's just excuse making. Well, I couldn't get that paper in time, and I couldn't get tenure, and because of COVID, and I couldn't get a pay raise because of COVID, and COVID's been hard on all of us, so let me just check off on all your performance boxes as being proficient because COVID was tough on everybody. And then instead of actually evaluating people accurately based on what they have done or have not done, the excuse making is the only thing that increased, and laziness increased. It's disgusting. It goes on here. It says, to promote both organizational well-being and high-quality research, universities must address the factors that can undermine them. That's funny, because that's not going to happen. Artificial intelligence is undermining academia and high-quality research in universities, and it's the thing burying them, and they're openly inviting it. I mean, wrap your head around that one. They're putting the shotgun in their own mouth on a constant basis, and they don't even know why. They think it's a good thing. This'll fit nice, so what's this trigger do? And then they just pull it without even asking a question. It goes on, it says, one of these factors, is excessive control and quantification of academic work. Here we go. While recognizing that accountability is fundamental to academic work, it should not be overly regulated by rigid deadlines. Oh, now they're making excuses for things are too hard. See, stuff's too hard. We got to make things easier now. Amazing. Numerical targets and constant monitoring, or distorted by the pursuant of mindless performativity. Well, I agree with that to some extent, no doubt about it. Again, in higher ed, there's copious amounts of time wasting, conversations, committees, and yes, in many cases, there's undue publication requirements that aren't needed. I agree with all of that. And that, too, of course, has led to one of the major reasons why the instruction has suffered, and why the students suffer, and why, of course, their learning suffers. Again, many professors will bring their research into the classroom and share it with their students as formal instruction, regardless of the class they're teaching, as if the thing they're researching actually applies. And in many cases, it doesn't. It has no foothold whatsoever. That was one of the things that I always said, in particular during the interviews, is if I was going to teach in higher ed, I had to make sure that what I was actually researching applied within my teacher education classes. I was interested in examining, again, the school environment, the kinds of curriculum that they were using. What did people think about specifically violence? This was always, that specifically, the violence and conflict, was my research agenda. So when they would ask me, what's your research agenda? That was the answer I always provided. Here are the books I've written about it. Here's the research I've done. This needs to be examined, and there's numerous avenues. But of course, like any failing business, if you have violence, it's going to fail. I've used the example of a t-shirt shop on a regular basis for a variety of things. If you have a t-shirt shop and fights are breaking out in the t-shirt shop, people aren't going to show up anymore to buy a t-shirt. It doesn't really matter the business. If you have violence, people won't want to go. not to mention the physiological toll that violence takes on the human brain, in particular, the observer to said violence, who has nothing to do with the actual violent interaction. Just the person watching it and hearing about it. It takes a toll on them. Anyway, I digress. It says the following here. It says this would enhance the presence of harmonious passion as a protective factor, leading to positive and optimal experiences at work. Again, making things easier. It says often facilitated by the availability of resources in organization, an important element on which academic management should focus according to organizational needs. It wraps up here, and it says the study also confirms the importance of promoting policies and practices that facilitate detachment from work and work-life balance. These initiatives, such as economic resources to support family caregiving, dedicated leaves, and assistance upon returning from caregiving responsibilities, should be tailored to the context and targeted to both faculty and technical administrative staff. Equally important, individuals in positions of influence should lead by example. By practicing effective technology disconnection on weekends and holidays, this could help combat the widespread stigma associated with not being fully dedicated to academic work. A work-life balance that includes a balance between meaningful work, necessary detachment from it, and a fulfilling personal life is more beneficial to both well-being and performance than complete devotion to work. I agree with that. I agree with it. The debate, I think, here, or certainly a question, is are they using COVID as a Trojan horse to dumb things down? I mean, how easy do they want things to be on a constant basis? Again, inquiry, reading, writing, teaching, these are supposed to be easy for those of us that find it relatively straightforward because it's how we're made. It's how we've been raised. It's what we're interested in. But again, I fully understand that there is unnecessary work that's being done within these environments, all education-related environments in particular, because now you have less people doing the job, which means more people have to pick up the so-called slack. So if this particular author is implying that that through their research they've found that maybe you need to take some space out of the rope to relieve some of the slack, I'm all for that. That makes sense. It says policymakers should address the challenge of rethinking accreditation and evaluation criteria. The pandemic provided an opportunity to collect data involving both workforce and students. Although limited to a specific time period, these data can provide valuable insights for the ongoing reevaluation process, unquote. So again, it makes you wonder what their motive is regarding the actual study. Are they interested in dumbing things down to the point where anybody can be a professor and anybody can be in these environments and anybody can get tenured? Or are they doing it because they're actually seeing a decay in the human mind and it's destroying the people who work in these environments? It could be both. Could be way more too. I'm not sure. But yeah, so I'll finish my review on that at another time, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Again, at least someone is studying the impact that all of this has had on the human mind of the people who are actually in those environments who unfortunately believed the lie. That would be the question that I think, and that really is the paper that needs to be written. I've written it on Substack, of course, but that's the formal research that needs to take place. Go into these environments and ask them, are you aware of publications that indicate that COVID isn't real? Are you aware of publications that indicate that this is a biological weapon? Are you aware of publications that exist and numerous lectures and conversations that exist that point to a depopulation agenda and how this is all designed to destroy the very line of work that you yourself are in? And just watch them shit their pants. I mean, because they would have to. They would probably, much like in a board meeting, in a school board meeting, they would get up and run away out of your own research that they would willfully want to participate in for one reason or another. They would probably run away. And speaking of running away, let me mention this. This was hilarious. AJ Gochick, our favorite California lawyer, sent me this quick text message with a picture, very alarming. He said the following. He said that he and his son were in Los Angeles visiting a law school where his son was offered a full ride scholarship. The sign in front of the entrance, and he took a picture, said the following. This is Southwestern Law School in Los Angeles, California. Let me describe the sign. It says indoor masking status at the top. And then it says masking phase today, and it has this green bar across the entire thing, and it says the word low. And then they have your little key at the bottom, which is low, medium, and high. Medium is in yellow, and high is red. And then they have a QR code at the bottom. And when you zoom in, which is a little tough, but it says mask rule for in-person classes, exams, and events, where the person attendance is mandatory. And then it says not required for mask wearing if it's low, and then required if it's medium, and then required if it's high. And then they have another one, mask rule for indoor, I think that's indoor, common areas. And the mask is not required if it's low, the mask is not required if it's medium, and it is required if it's deemed high. So not only have they created this fake system designed to scare people, but it's based on a lie, and they don't even know it. And here's what he said. He said, I got into with several administrators and a professor about the sign, and a current dipshit law student too. I'll tell you more about it later. Suffice it to say, his son is not going to go there and needs to leave the state. He said, LA is a shithole. I haven't been there in almost 10 years, and there's literally a crazy person on every block on Wilshire Boulevard. He said, I told them the sign reminds me of the Homeland Security color codes to keep the fear level constant, that it was psychological conditioning. They had nothing. Then the law student says, when you go to a national park, they have color signs for the fire threat level. I said, yeah, fire is real, COVID isn't. Then I really let them have it and got closer physically, and he ran away. Pussy, unquote. It's just great. It's great. They run away. They physically run when you tell them the truth. You're going, no, wait, stop. I'm trying to tell you something that's real. And they just scream, shout, and run away. It's amazing. These people and what they've gone along with. No wonder they, quote unquote, have insomnia. And no wonder they have endless mental and emotional disorders. They gave it to themselves by believing something that isn't even real. Just nuts. Okay, one more education thing here, kind of shifting gears slightly. Although you talk about believing something that's not real and that leading to potentially worse things. The state of Tennessee has written a bill that apparently would allow or require gun safety courses to be taught in public schools. Now, I've been over this subject in depth before, and you may be familiar with my take on this. I look at this in a multifaceted, multidimensional way. When you stage fake shootings, in particular in or around schools, and you get everybody whipped up about a number of different things regarding school shootings and gun control, and we need to take down the signs that say gun-free zone, and everybody needs to be armed and the whole thing. Again, I'm pro-Second Amendment like nobody's business, and everybody knows that. And I'm all for carrying a gun anywhere and everywhere. My problem has to do with the intellect of the individuals who work within school buildings. Because the people who are going to want that training and want to carry a gun in a school are going to be the Barney Fife kinds of people. These are going to be the ones that want to carry guns. They're not going to be the left-wing whack jobs who don't even own a gun, who get raped, assaulted, murdered, and then wonder why it happened. Those people are going to stay as far away from guns as humanly possible. But the people who are going to want them are the ones who are going to want to flash them to students, show off, and do other things. Potentially, the very small percentage, and I mean small percentage, of individuals working in these environments now are actually going to be responsible and carry the gun responsibly, I should say. I don't think that individuals should be kept from having a gun on a campus. Certainly not a university campus. I mean, if you're old enough to carry a gun, you should be able to carry a gun. Same thing again in school environments. If you want to carry a gun, great. It should be concealed. It should be in a classroom potentially, if not on your person and concealed. No one should be walking around with bandoliers and a shotgun over their shoulder, although they might feel like it from time to time, certainly based on the environment. But you get what I'm saying. I just think that this introduces Barney Fife to show up to the nth degree. And then you have students asking questions again of about gun possession among their school teachers, and it just introduces a whole nother level of potential chaos, where even again, a child, a minor, might end up gaining possession of said gun in said environment that is supposed to be in the environment in the hands of a lawful employee, and then something happens. I also think you're more likely to have these Barney Fife types pull triggers in directions where a trigger does not need to get pulled. Again, I can see this from multiple angles. You have to understand, though, school shootings are rare. They are few and far between. Fake school shootings, however, are far more frequent. They're yearly, frankly, and they certainly have been in the previous years here. But again, it just begs the question about the training. How far is the training going to go? And how far does the individual using the training or utilizing the training, how far are they going to go in the training? Again, are these individuals that are comfortable running to a scene with a gun and accurately identifying said individual without pulling a trigger? And then, of course, potentially killing an innocent person in the middle of all of this, and then misidentifying, the said shooter or the actual assailant. I don't know. This one is complicated because it's so multifaceted, and ultimately you're relying on the brain of a school employee. And frankly, I don't rely on them. I mean, at this point, can you? I don't think you can. I mean, we can't rely on them to teach children to read and write appropriately. We can't rely on them to get pornographic books out of the library, but we're supposed to rely on an environment that has individuals carrying guns and potentially having this increase in wanting to carry a gun. It's the want and the lies behind the want that are the problem for me. Because if you explain to these people that fake school shootings happen, they would look at you like you're a crazy person. So, I don't know. Again, it's the fairy tale behind the legislation that is the problem for me. That's all. And again, if you read the Guidepost Solutions report from the Oxford, Michigan school shooting that really did take place, that was real. What you're going to find is that individuals who had guns who were on campus, they didn't do what they were supposed to do. There was an actual deputy in the building, female, who carried a gun. And she didn't do anything. She thought it was fake. She thought that the shooting that was going on was fake, and that the dead body she was looking at was an individual who was wearing makeup. I've been over that on the show before, but I mean, that's a very specific example of what I'm talking about. That's the level of incompetence we're dealing with here. So, honest to God, get them out, because these environments are going to turn into shooting ranges more so than they already are, both real and fake. So, there you go. Speaking of what's real and what's fake, but what is most certainly stupid, this was from the Gateway Pundit. Chiefs star Travis Kelce chugs and slams beer on stage after receiving diploma from the University of Cincinnati. Of course, the video's making the rounds. He holds it up like he's receiving, a championship belt at WrestleMania. And he shakes the hand of the president. He chugs a beer. He slams it on the ground. The beer goes everywhere. And if you look at this picture, what you will see are endless zombies, just a farm of sheep, laughing, cheering, taking pictures of him, taking video of him with smiles on their faces. The president is smiling next to him. He's holding a beer the whole time. It's not like he hid it. It's in his hands. But if this was anybody else doing this, that, of course, would be illegal, because you can't have a beer in an open area that's not permitted to sell alcohol, unless, of course, this is inside of a stadium, in which case, if alcohol sales are present, then what he's doing is legal, I guess. But I don't think it's a BYOB kind of environment, if you catch my drift. And if it's your average student, which, let's face it, he wasn't one, but if it was anybody else, they'd be disciplined. And it's quite possible they would be fined, arrested, and then there would be sanctions placed on their diploma or receiving their diploma. It's beyond disgusting. I'm not sure who's dumber. Kelce, the university employees who let this happen, or all the sheep taking pictures and video like this is funny. It's beyond pathetic. In fact, it's just a perfect snapshot of American society, in my opinion, and the dumbing down of American society. So there you go. That's my 2 cents on that. Jab-related things. Two quick things here real quick. This is disappointing. This comes from the CDC, which, by the way, they've hidden over 700,000 more adverse reactions from the Pfizer jabs. But there is this particular report which came out on April 11th. It's also available on their website. Keep in mind, this is them so-called studying themselves. It's the CDC studying themselves. It's titled Assessment of Risk for Sudden Cardiac Death Among Adolescents and Young Adults After Receipt of COVID-19 Vaccine from Oregon in June of 2021 through December of 2022. Here's the abstract. It says, quote, COVID-19 vaccination has been associated with myocarditis in adolescents and young adults, and concerns have been raised about possible vaccine-related cardiac fatalities in this age group. It says in April of 2021, cases of myocarditis after COVID-19 vaccination, particularly among young male vaccine recipients, were reported to the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. To assess this possibility, they say, investigators searched death certificates for Oregon residents aged 16 through 30 years who died during June of 2021 through December of 2022 for cardiac or undetermined, causes of death. So again, pay attention to what they've just front-loaded their statement by saying we assess this possibility. Well, it's not a possibility, it's a fact. But they're telling people it's a possibility. So now they investigate possibilities, so they say. And then what did they search? Death certificates in Oregon among 16 to 30-year-olds. Well, first of all, you couldn't receive a COVID jab legally in June of 2021 through August of 2021 if you were 16 years old. If you were 18 and younger, you couldn't even receive a COVID shot. So some of the people that they've allegedly investigated here based on death certificates, which is fraudulent in itself, some of these people weren't even COVID jabbed. It does, however, go on, unfortunately, and it says, for identified descendants Records in Oregon's immunization information system were reviewed for documentation of mRNA COVID-19 vaccination received less than 100 days before death. Among 1,292 identified deaths, COVID-19 was cited as the cause for 30. Keep in mind, the CDC is running on the fact that their own adverse event reporting system related to vaccines is accurate, which we of course know it isn't. So they're using this low number as a justification for the shots not causing heart damage and death. It goes on, predictably, and it says for 101 others, a cardiac cause of death could not be excluded. Among these descendants, immunization information system records were available for 88, 3 of whom had received an mRNA COVID-19 vaccination within 100 days of death. Of 40 deaths that occurred among persons who had received an mRNA COVID-19 vaccine dose, 3 occurred less than 100 days after vaccination. 2 of these deaths were attributed to chronic underlying conditions. Convenient. How convenient? And the cause was undetermined for 1. Oh, okay. So no death certificate, it says, attributed death to vaccination. That's what they say. It literally says that. They have determined that, quote, no death certificate attributed death to vaccination. These data do not support an association between receipt of mRNA COVID-19 vaccine and sudden cardiac death among previously healthy young persons. COVID-19 vaccination is recommended for all persons aged greater than 6 months to prevent COVID-19 and complications, including death, unquote. That's right. They want you to take a COVID shot to prevent death. They just said so. It's in this quote-unquote study on their page. Can you believe these people? They're psychopaths. They're all psychopaths. Again, in the last war video, well, actually, I don't know if I included it or not. My apologies if I didn't, but I came across a video that had Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, along with, I would say, roughly half a dozen other nitwits. And they're all sitting at this boardroom, and some report comes on the TV that they're all looking at, and they jump out of their seats applauding and shaking one another's hands, and they're excited. Because in this report, allegedly, it says that the COVID shots are 90% effective. And now they're all celebrating, and they quite literally pass out champagne glasses and pour champagne and cheers one another as they drink champagne, celebrating a 90% efficacy rate among COVID shots, Pfizer shots specifically, which of course we know is not true. It's 0% effective when it comes to preventing anything because the thing it's designed to prevent is you being alive. It's 100% effective for that. For killing and maiming, no doubt about it. But preventing what? COVID? There is no COVID. So what are you taking? A biological weapon. And what you just heard the CDC say, of course, is the excuses bus backing up. Rely on us, rely on our website, we'll always tell you the truth. It's unbelievable. The gaslighting and the abuse here and the genocide is just unbelievable. And they're not going to stop. I mean, this is where they are now. They've been writing these pieces about the health trouble and the deaths related to the shots, and now, of course, they're doing whatever they can to even gaslight their own articles and bury their own articles, saying, well, geez, it seems like people are getting sick from taking the shots. Now they're writing completely different pieces and openly saying that there are no health ramifications and no death as a result of the shots, that there's no way to tell. This right here, I think, is exactly why they need another lockdown of some kind. They need to ramp up the panic for something else and attempt another lockdown of some kind, because these kinds of publications aren't working. They're not working. I don't know who believes them. I mean, well, we know who believes them. I can answer my own question on that. We know who believes them, and that's the unfortunate part. But my God, they need another scare event. They need another physical scare event. And another lockdown would surely give it to them. So, again, we'll keep an eye on the pandemic treaty thing. As I said in the last episode, I know more people are posting about that on social media the closer that it gets. And of course, that's a behind closed doors vote that they're going to take. And I mean, let's face it, our government and the institutions in our country are going to buy into it. They just will. Medical doctors all over the place, hospital conglomerates, they'll all buy into it no matter what it is. Question is how many citizens are going to buy it? What's law enforcement going to do? Are the businesses going to close down or not if they pull this again? Time will certainly tell on all of this, no doubt about it. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I'll catch you on Wednesday. Thanks for listening. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.